me move this and make it smaller. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Wei Keong. I'm from Malaysia and I'm attached to School of Education, University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus. I'm happy to share with you a project that I've been involved with a group of AsiaTEFL committee members in terms of English language curriculum. As right now is around lunch hour, okay, this is for everyone, okay, for you to get, okay. What are the ways of having fries, French fries? So you see, well, that's a lot of ways of having it. So on my left, well, you just have the regular French fries sprinkled with a little bit of yogurt, and then you can put it as one of the toppings for pizza. And you can include it with, well, mashed potato, potato plus potato. And the latest one, which is French fries, ice cream. So you may ask me, why do I use and talk about French fries when we are in an English language teaching conference? I would like to make this analogy on doing comparison of curricula. Let's take our one curriculum, our all different curricula, okay, as French fries. Now, in different countries, there are different ways of putting them together. There are different ways of presenting it, as well as there are some unique and ingenious way of thinking outside the box, help us to look at what the nation is like. So this is my reflections on this project. When I've been given the opportunity to compare, okay, English language curricula in Asian country as well as region, I ask myself, what do I do about it? How do I compare and contrast curricula from different countries? Because there's no way I could compare them, am I right? So therefore, I go to the second reflection. Okay, if I can't, okay, use one size fits all, okay, comparison, how should I go about it? How do I narrow it? So the questions that I ask myself, what are points of comparison? And how do I compare it? And lastly, before I actually carry out the comparison and analysis, I ask myself, what are the expected outcomes that I want to see? Is it something very concrete? Or is it something that to theorize theories? Or am I trying to prove something, saying that there are differences where everyone knows that, well, every country is different? So these are my think aloud processes. So in order to help me to do this comparison, okay, oh, sorry, let's jump too fast. Okay, I use framework of curricular comparison framework by, okay, Adamson and Morris in 2014. At this framework, where they present, okay, a framework of 3 points to compare curricula. First, on top is purpose and perspective, followed by curriculum focus, and third, manifestation. They said that these three must be positioned at three different points, and they influence each other. So if we look at this framework, because this is a documents analysis, and I'm working on the discourse that's presented in the document. Therefore, I'm focusing specifically on purpose and perspective and curriculum focus. I'm not looking at manifestation. Manifestations, it means that I need to carry out the classroom observations or the other observations which will allow me to make certain, judgment or makes certain conclusion. So therefore, because I'm not able to carry out that part, so for this study, I'm focusing on purpose and perspective and curriculum focus. Now, the title, as I presented, focus on standards. What are standards? So standards I define as learning outcomes that are set by a nation. So the questions that I ask myself when I want to look at specifically standards, I ask, what does it mean by a proficient user of English language in that curriculum? Now we look at language policy. Language policy is a document that documents national identity, even though English is considered as for many countries in Asia or second language. And it's from the document we will know that how this language is positioned in a society as well as in education, and how learning this language will help the country. And according to Liddicoat in 2013, language policy is an imagined future linguistic situation and makes provisions to bring this into existence. So therefore, language policy is important because it allows us all the different levels of life when this language is put into play at different levels. And today, we're looking at education. Now, in terms of developments of English language in Asia, there is a plethora of English language literature, developments in Asia. So I'm not going to specifically go into detail. But one point which is very important up until today is about global literacy skill. People are talking about, if you want to become a global citizen, English language is a tool, it's part of the tool besides technology. Because if we look at all the internet resources around the world in Google, over 80%, it is in English. So therefore, if we use that as a yardstick, this global citizens movement as well as global literacy skills movement, calls for the inclusions of English language in school to be learned as well as to be taught to all citizens. Now, Rizvi and Lingard in 2010 said, educational purposes have been redefined in terms of narrow set of concern about human capital development. And the role of education must play to meet the needs of global economy to ensure the competitiveness of the national economy. So because of the changing role of education, the definitions has been narrow and brought to when we look at global citizens, global literacy skill. And when you talk about these 2 points, you need to bring in language. So therefore, English language has become the first choice or the most popular foreign language, well, across the world, not only in Asia. Now, my sources of data, okay, I'm so sorry because of the panel up there. Okay, the sources of the data includes 7 countries. Oops, sorry, here. Includes 7 countries. There are China, okay, countries and region. So we have China, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, 7. So these are the guiding questions for me when I compare the curriculum. First, definitely we need to look at the philosophy, the national philosophy, how they are translated into curriculum, because it will dictate how the ecology in the classroom will be, because the purpose of education is for human capital development. So therefore, we can't run away from philosophy. And the questions that I would like to look for is, what is the national education philosophy? I know that in some country, they don't have a specific national education philosophy. However, they have mission, vision, or they have the objective of learning a subject or a skill. So I'm looking from that perspective in terms of philosophy. Second is education system. From there, we'll be able to see how the philosophy is implemented. Is it centralized or decentralized? If it is decentralized, okay, what type of autonomy that the government provides for the teacher? Is it contextualized curriculum encouraged? The third one, what is the definitions of national curriculum? What is the definitions of national curriculum? What does it mean? Because sometimes certain countries, they have a very clear, okay, guidelines on national curriculum, where this is the curriculum, okay, and all the subjects like mathematics, science, okay, language, okay, it will come from the national curriculum framework. They have that. I believe all the countries you have that. However, how is it being translated into the English language policy and curriculum? That is something that to look at. Next, we can't run away from examination. How many public exams do students look at? I'm specifically look at primary school and secondary school, and in English part of the public examination. Next, what's the definitions of English language curriculum? And this is the part you'll see later on. The data that I present will be closely related and linked to the philosophy of a nation. And lastly, evaluation framework. Okay, does the country prescribe, okay, an evaluative framework, and who designed it? Why is it important to know who designed it? Because from there we will know how they define a proficient English language user of English look like, and how that definition is presented in the classroom, as well as how it is translated into the teaching practice on that. So let's look at philosophy. I'm just randomly pick, okay, 3 of them to show you the differences. Yeah. Now for Hong Kong, okay, they have vision and mission. So you see, Okay, they have that we provide quality school education for our students to develop their potential to the full and to prepare them for the challenges in life. The mission, we deliver professional services to ensure effective use of resources. We forge partnerships to promote excellence in school education. In China, they have the term called 立德树人. It means you develop the students not only for the development of the knowledge, but also for characters building, for the betterment of the nation. And Indonesia, they have a very clear 3-pillar. It means that from the front, educator become a role model, and at the middle educator work together with the students, and they all comes together at 3 levels. So these are the 3 different ways of defining the philosophy in education policy. Now, when it comes to education and national curriculum, now it's very interesting because sometimes the line is not clear in terms of centralized or decentralized. Now, if you look at, I look at it from these 2 perspectives, I look at one, there isn't one which is totally centralized right now among the 7 countries that I am looking at. There are elements of centralized where the Ministry of Education issue a national curriculum, but at the same time, the teachers are given opportunity, to have some autonomy to carry out teaching delivery by designing the materials, by involving with the stakeholder, even the parents. Like in China, people thought that it was centralized. Not necessary, because at the state level as well as the provincial level, they are allowed to have opportunity to develop materials which suit the students in that particular area, with the cooperation with the state or the provincial, the state office. And in Indonesia as well, they push it even further, sometimes with even the hiring of the teacher. It is done, not centralized, but decentralized. In terms of Malaysia, we go for, decentralized in terms of the teachers will need to develop their areas and to carry out the teaching activity as long as they fulfill the standards as provided. So these 3 countries, they have stronger, the national curriculum has a stronger present there. But to some extent, they also allow teachers to have some autonomy. Now, when it comes to decentralized, these countries as well as one region, they allow the teachers to have autonomy by not providing a prescribed curriculum. They provide either guidelines, like in Japan. In Singapore as well, they provide guidelines for the teacher as well as the outcome. In India, they also provide you some background, I believe so. If I got it wrong, please correct me, and allow teachers to look at the outcome and use the government approved textbook to be used in the classroom. So we also have in Hong Kong, in Hong Kong as well. They also do that, all right? So decentralized. So in terms of national examination, all except Japan has for primary as well as grade 9 examination. Japan, they don't have, but they do have like school entrance exam in certain school. Yeah, but those are very much conducted by the school respectively. Now, for all the countries, all of us, we have secondary school exam. It means that before they enter the university. So that must be, and there is one for all countries. Now, in terms of the English language syllabus, as well as the evaluative framework. So if you look at it, Japan, they look at globalized English, okay? Their evaluative framework is developed nationally. Indonesia, they use text-based. Also, the framework nationally developed. Hong Kong, task-based, okay? It is by a group of committee, and they work very closely with international partner to benchmark their standard. Okay, China, okay? In terms of English syllabus, they don't have a specific syllabus. For them, they believe in post methodology and they believe in eclectic way of teaching, which allow the teachers to have the free hand, okay, to choose whichever way to help the learners to, okay, to learn. And the evaluative framework is national. Malaysia, standard-based English language curriculum, and it is following, okay, CFR. And this CFR is specifically developed for Malaysia with the Malaysian government working with Cambridge, okay? And India, communicative, developed nationally, and Singapore. Singapore, because they themselves is a very unique situation, their examination, okay, for O levels, they send it to UK for marking for English. So therefore, everything followed the Cambridge examination syndicate. So you will see there are more national developed, okay, bodies right now. And then if you look at the different types of syllabus being used, it's also different. And it also tells us about the social background of the student. Now, let's look at, sorry. Let's look at the, okay, the data that we've got. So what we've got. In terms of the philosophy, there are two, okay, education ideology that we see, okay? Most of the countries, they would like to have to provide learners with opportunity for enhancing their personal and intellectual development. Okay, they don't specifically talk about future employment, but they're talking about their personal and intellectual development so that they can keep up with the world, progressive. And another one which is to induct learners to a particular political orthodoxy. Okay, we will see this in China. Okay, China is a combination of these two because they have a very strong political education framework behind the national curriculum. But for other countries, okay, they have, okay, a progressive and movement to move forward. And the terms that I picked up from the documents as well as the interview that I've conducted, like global citizen, a holistic person, a whole person, and 21st century competency. And if we look at it, well, we talk about globalizations of the language, the global language literacy. But if you look at the documents that have been presented, most of the documents slowly are moving away from this statements of the traditional word perspective of globalized world, globalized English, okay, of dialectic and the global and the local. What does it mean? It means that it is a discordance between global influence and local context. Right now, what most of the country do is they recognize that globalization is there and we want to embrace it, but we do it our own way. So therefore, they have their own interpretation in terms of the philosophy, how they transfer the philosophy into the English language curricula. However, international standards are used, okay, for education reform and policy borrowing because they elevate fears of falling behind, even though they are using it. Like for example, my country, even though we are using CEFR, Malaysian government work with the Cambridge examination to come up with, they call it CEFR-M-M. It means that this framework specifically, okay, use it for Malaysian education system. So it has slowly moved away from, okay, the old ways of, okay, I buy in your Western concept of thinking, okay, and all this. Right now, we realize that we want to do it on our terms so that, okay, the gap between our local needs and the global developments, influence, and mandate can be made narrower. So when it comes to policy borrowing, okay, policy borrowing, it means that just like using Malaysia government, where government, they would benchmark against CFR or even use the framework, okay? Sometimes if, let's say you allow, you use the Cambridge, the standard, then you just adopt it. But when it comes to borrowing, okay, these are the four distinctive, okay, ideas that people will look at. Even though the idea is for our own national developed framework, evaluative framework. One, they look at cross-national attractions. What's the impulses as well as external potential for that particular development? Why do we want to keep up to that level? Why do we want to choose this particular benchmark? Okay, that my national developed idea, what I call evaluative framework, want to benchmark against yours. Why do I do that? Next, decision making. What are the factors that make you decide on that? And how do you implement it? And then lastly, how do you adopt it? Where you internalize and indigenization. This is very important because we are moving away. Yeah, moving away from the old way of looking at globalization. So when we talk about moving away and all this, people in Asia, when we talk about English, besides as a tool right now, some community, they see English to some extent as a threat, especially for mother tongue-based educator. They see it, they said, when applied to education, a monolingual habitus, it means that if we consider English as the only, okay, foreign language that we should use in the classroom, okay, to be taught in the classroom, a monolingual habitus causes us to view a learner as deficient if he or she doesn't speak the dominant language used for instruction. Like over here is English, okay? When we should recognize and make use of all the linguistic, cultural experiences, resources. So it means that English might diminish, okay, might sideline all other languages. Whereas in one country, there are so many languages, but probably the economy token, the currency is not as strong as English. So I would like to extend this discussion further. How do we go about it? So what about other languages? When Asia is a multicultural, a multilingual society. So when we look at English language curriculum, we cannot just look at it from, okay, national language versus English language. We need to look at national language, the choice English, foreign language, which is English language, and other languages. How do you put them side by side? Because at the end of the day, to be a global citizen, you want them to be able to speak more than two languages besides national and English? So my closing remark, I would like to use three questions that Kirkpatrick and Lidco in 2017, okay, asked all the readers about language policies in Asia. They asked, will the implementations of regional language policy be likely to lead a reduction in the numbers of Asians who are multilingual in Asian language? 2, will the diverse linguistic landscape of the region gradually be replaced by an increasing trend towards monolingualism in the national language for the majority and bilingual in the national language and English for the elite? This is inequality. Yeah, because if we don't carry out the English language policy properly, then we will only favor the elite. And third, might the elite in some cases even develop English as their first language? So with that, thank you so much.